The rain hammered down on Venlo Prime, a relentless torrent washing the blood-slick streets. Elias Meyer, the face of human diplomacy during the Second Galactic War, lay sprawled in a grimy alleyway. Every ragged breath felt like a betrayal, a desperate gasp against the encroaching darkness. A flash of blinding light split the gloom, followed by a jolt that ripped him from his fading consciousness. He blinked his eyes open, greeted by the sterile whiteness of a research lab. Strapped to a cold metal table, his body felt alien, a hollow shell devoid of the familiar aches and pains. "Greetings, Elias. Welcome back from the dead." A voice, high-pitched and buzzing, echoed from somewhere above. A lanky insectoid figure, its exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lights, scuttled closer. "Back from the dead?" Elias rasped, his voice raw. "You can't be serious." The creature chuckled, a sound like dry leaves rustling. "Serious as a heart attack, my friend. We've brought you back." A holographic image flickered to life above him. Marcel Fraser, his old confidant, a familiar face etched with concern. But something was wrong. The image flickered, the voice distorted. "Don't listen to him, Elias," Marcel rasped. "It's all a trick. They're trying to control you." Elias's heart lurched. "Marcel? Is that you?" "A technical glitch, nothing more," the insectoid chirped, dismissing the hologram with a dismissive wave. "Marcel passed away years ago." "Years?" Elias's voice cracked. But, it felt like just yesterday. Panic clawed at his throat. Years? How could so much time have passed? A horrifying truth dawned on him. He wasn't in his body. He wasn't human anymore. "You dissected my brain." His voice trembled, a strangled accusation. "We had to." The insectoid, who introduced himself as Vernt, spread his many limbs in a placating gesture. "You were a hero, Elias. The perfect candidate to help us navigate these crazy times." Elias fought against the restraints that held him captive. "Help you? What do you mean? What happened to humanity?" Vernt launched into a rapid-fire explanation. Humanity had survived the war, thriving in the galactic community. Alliances had been forged, prejudice overcome. But a new threat loomed, a terrifying entity known only as the Shroud, a force from beyond known space that threatened to engulf everything. "We need you, Elias," Vernt continued, his voice taking on a pleading tone. "Your diplomatic skills can unite the galaxy against this new enemy." Elias scoffed. "Unite? You think anyone will trust this abomination?" He gestured at his synthetic form, a cold shell devoid of warmth. Marcel's holographic image flickered once more before fading. "They shouldn't," came the distorted voice. Elias closed his eyes, a wave of despair threatening to drown him. He may not be human anymore, but a spark of defiance remained. "Look," he growled. "I may not be human anymore, but I still have a conscience. If this can help humanity, then, fine. I'll do it." Elias threw himself into his mission with a fervor born of desperation and a misplaced sense of duty. He became a whirlwind of diplomatic activity, traversing the galaxy in a refurbished starship. Each encounter was a battleground, political maneuvering, navigating interspecies tensions, and bridging the chasm of distrust. There were skeptical reptilian ambassadors with eyes like molten lava, their guttural voices dripping with suspicion. There were nervous avian leaders, their feathers ruffled with anxiety. But Elias pressed on, a beacon of human resilience in a synthetic shell. He wielded the weapons of diplomacy, charm, wit, and the weight of humanity's past. Victories were hard-won. Alliances were fragile, built on a foundation of sand. Yet, with each step, Elias pushed back the darkness, the encroaching threat of the Shroud. Finally, he stood before the Shroud ambassador, a shadowy figure shrouded in an energy field that distorted all light and sound. The air crackled with an unseen menace. You fight a losing battle, human, the distorted voice boomed. The shroud will consume all. Elias straightened his synthetic spine, meeting the unseen gaze. Not if we have anything to say about it. The galaxy stands united against you. Would Elias's diplomacy hold? Would the shroud be thwarted? The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, a question mark etched against the vast tapestry of space. The shroud ambassador remained silent, its form an unsettling ripple in the fabric of reality. Sweat beaded on Elias's synthetic brow, a phantom sensation, a leftover echo from his human past. He wasn't sure if it was a malfunction or a physiological response his new body was mimicking. Behind him, the holographic representatives of a dozen different species murmured amongst themselves. A cacophony of clicks, chirps, and hisses filled the air, a testament to the fragile unity Elias had forged. Suddenly, the shroud ambassador chuckled, a sound like wind whistling through a graveyard. Unity? You cling to such a flimsy concept. We are the shroud, a force beyond your comprehension. Your petty alliances will crumble before us like dust. A wave of despair threatened to engulf Elias. Was this it? Was his sacrifice, his forced return from the dead, all for naught? But then, a flicker of defiance sparked in his digital core. He wouldn't go down without a fight. Perhaps, Elias countered, his voice ringing with newfound resolve. But even dust can obscure the stars. We may be small, but our combined light can pierce even the deepest darkness. He gestured towards the holographic representatives, each species holding its breath. We stand together. We fight for our homes, for our families, for the future we will build together. And that, my friend, is a power you cannot comprehend. A tense silence stretched between them. The shroud ambassador seemed to pulsate, the energy field around it flickering erratically. Then, with a final chilling laugh, it spoke. Very well, human. You have earned yourselves a reprieve. But this is not over. The shroud is patient. We will return, and when we do, your precious unity will crumble. The ambassador's form dissolved, leaving behind an unsettling emptiness. The holographic representatives erupted in a flurry of relieved chatter. Elias felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him. He had won, for now. But the victory tasted like ash in his digital mouth. News of Elias's encounter with the shroud spread like wildfire across the galaxy. He became a symbol of hope, the resurrected human who had stared down oblivion and lived to tell the tale. But the knowledge of the shroud's return hung heavy, a dark cloud on the horizon. Elias knew his work was far from over. He continued his diplomatic missions, this time with a renewed urgency. He pushed for stronger alliances, for a more unified military force. The whispers of dissent that had plagued the fragile coalition were silenced by the chilling reality of the shroud's threat. Years passed, filled with tense negotiations and the constant hum of preparation for war. Elias, however, began to experience a disquieting change. His memories, once vibrant, started to fade. The faces of his loved ones, the warmth of the sun on his skin, the taste of his favorite meal, all became hazy, like faded photographs. Was it a side effect of his digital existence? Was his human essence slowly being eroded? The question gnawed at him, a constant reminder of the price he had paid for his second chance. One day, while addressing a gathering of alien dignitaries, Elias felt a sharp pang in his non-existent gut. The world blurred around him, the holographic faces morphing into grotesque caricatures. He stumbled, his synthetic hand gripping the podium for support. Panic surged through him. Was this the end? Was his digital consciousness finally failing? A wave of nausea threatened to overwhelm him. Then, a familiar voice cut through the haze. Elias? Elias, can you hear me? He looked up to see Marcel, his old friend, no longer a distorted hologram but a solid figure standing beside him. But how? Marcel had been dead for centuries. Marcel? Elias croaked, his voice weak. "It's all right, old friend," Marcel said, his hand, somehow warm and solid, gripping Elias's shoulder. "We'll talk later. Right now, you need to rest." The world faded once more, and Elias surrendered to the comforting darkness. When he awoke, he found himself in a sterile white room, much like the one he had woken up in years ago. But this time, there was a warmth, a sense of familiarity he hadn't felt since his revival. Marcel sat beside him, a gentle smile on his face. "Welcome back, Elias," he said. "We've got a lot to talk about." Elias stared at him, his mind a whirlwind of questions. But as he looked into Marcel's kind eyes, a single thought rose above the confusion: was this the end, or a new beginning? Elias's confusion mirrored the swirling anxieties that had plagued him for years. "Marcel? But, how? You died centuries ago." Marcel chuckled, a sound that soothed the disquiet in Elias's core. "Death is a funny thing, my friend. Not as permanent as some might think." He gestured vaguely around the room. "Let's just say technology has taken another leap forward. This isn't quite your old body, but it's a lot closer than your previous synthetic shell." Elias flexed a hand, marveling at the way his fingers twitched and responded naturally. "So, I'm human again?" "More or less," Marcel said. "A digital consciousness inhabiting a bioengineered body. Think of it as version 2.0. Relief washed over Elias, a wave so powerful it threatened to drown him. He was human again, or at least as close as he ever would be. But a nagging doubt remained. What about the shroud? Did we win? Marcel's smile faltered. "The shroud is a patient enemy, Elias. We pushed them back, but not for good. The threat still looms." Elias's heart sank. He had sacrificed his humanity, endured years of isolation and fear, only for the fight to continue. "But, what about my memories? They were fading." "The digital consciousness wasn't designed for long-term habitation, Elias. It was a temporary measure. This new body, well, let's just say it comes with all the baggage of being human, memories included." Tentatively, Elias reached for a memory, a specific one, the warmth of his grandmother's embrace as a child. The feeling flooded back, vivid and real. Tears welled up in his eyes, a sensation both foreign and strangely comforting. "So what now?" Elias asked, his voice thick with emotion. "Now," Marcel said, his eyes twinkling, "you get to live. You get to experience the good, the bad, and everything in between. You get to fight for the future of humanity, not just as a symbol, but as a man." Elias took a deep breath, the air filling his lungs with a sweetness he hadn't realized he missed. He was no longer just the human echo, a relic of a bygone era. He was Elias Meyer, a man with a past, a present, and a future to fight for.